So you finished your dream interface. Now you want to map out all your controls. Well, in this tutorial we're going to show you how to do that. So let's go into the main page of Emulator. And I'm going to make a very basic layout with a play button, a volume slider, and a knob. I'm going to turn on transparency so I can see my underlying software, and I'm actually going to cut a hole to the underlying software just to make life easier for this tutorial. That way I don't have to keep flipping back and forth between programs. Okay, so after you've made your layout, you will want to go into the software you're working with. Bring up your controller manager, and here you'll notice I already have some assignments for another layout. But what we want to do is add another generic MIDI assignment. And you'll notice the assignment table is clear because we haven't added any controls yet. First thing you will want to do is make sure your MIDI ports are configured properly. So we'll change that. Now let's map our play button. What you want to do is click the Add In button at the bottom of the assignment table. Locate the deck play, select that, and you want to assign it to deck A because we want this play button to control the deck A play button in Traktor. So we've assigned it to deck A, and now we will click the Learn button. While the Learn button is highlighted, simply go into Emulator and click on the play button. You will notice that now it's been mapped to channel 1, number 0. Once you've done that, you can turn off the Learn button. And now if I go back into Emulator and I click on the play button, you will notice the play button in Traktor is also lighting up. That's because it's been mapped to the play button in Emulator. And if I load a track into deck A and I press the play button in Emulator, you will see that the track starts playing in Traktor. Now let's map out our volume fader. We will also want to map this to the deck A in Traktor. So we click Add In, locate our volume fader. There it is. Make sure it gets assigned to deck A. Click the Learn button, go back into Emulator, move the slider, and you will notice it's been mapped actually to the same channel and number as our play button. That's because in Emulator it's assigned to channel 1 and number 0. So what you will want to do is go back to Emulator, hold the Shift button, select your slider, change the value in the number field, we'll change it to 1, and move the fader one more time, and you will notice it's been reassigned now to what you specified in Emulator. You can turn off the Learn button in Traktor. If I go back into my fader in Emulator and I move it, you will notice it moving in Traktor as well. We've successfully mapped it to that fader in Traktor. So let's map out the knob in Emulator to the high frequency knob in Traktor. Once again, click on the Add In button. Let's locate our EQ. There it is. Make sure it gets assigned to deck A. Turn on the Learn button. Go back to Emulator. Move the knob. And you will notice it's been assigned to channel 1 and number 0 again. That's because in Emulator the knob is by default set to channel 1 and number 0. What you'll want to do is when you have your knob selected, just change that to another number. We'll number that 2 and move the knob one more time, and you will notice it gets reassigned. Channel 1, number 2. Now if I unselect my button and turn off the learn button in Traktor, if I move the knob in Emulator, you notice it moving in Traktor as well. Now, notice what happens when you enter a value that is out of range. Let's do it for the knob here. If I select the knob and I enter a different value, let's say 128, which is out of range, notice it stops working and it stops controlling the knob in Traktor. If I try to learn that MIDI mapping with an incorrect or out of range value, you will notice it does not learn. So let's change the value of that to something that is working. We've already mapped it to number 2, and there it is, working once again. Now, a really cool feature in Emulator Modular is you can have bidirectional MIDI controls. That means you can have Emulator send MIDI controls to Traktor, but you can also have Traktor send MIDI controls back to Emulator. And that is really nice if you need to see feedback, or if, for example, you load a track with a different gain, you can have that information come through to Emulator. So let's show you how to set up the bidirectional MIDI controls. Let's do it first for our play button. What you will want to do is this time click on the Add Out button, locate our deck play, make sure it's the deck A play button, and in this case there is no learn feature. You have to do this manually. Make sure you set it to the same channel and number as the button you wanted to send feedback to. Our play button is on channel 1, number 0, and that's it. If I click the play button in Traktor, you will notice it turned on in Emulator as well. So let's do that for our fader now. We will add out, select the volume fader, make sure it's the deck A volume fader, and select channel. Our volume fader is number 1, select number 1, and that's it. If I move the fader now in Traktor, you notice it's also moving in Emulator. And we'll do the same for the high frequency knob. Click on Add Out, locate the EQ, high frequency, make sure again it's on deck A, and our high frequency EQ is on channel 1, number 2. Make sure we select channel 1, number 2, and if you move the knob in Traktor, you can see it's also moving the knob in Emulator. And that is how you MIDI map Traktor to Emulator.